Hello and welcome to the Future Report. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1, officially this time.
Yep.
Today we have some interesting news from CES 2025 and some of the most confusing naming schemes you will ever see in the history of this podcast.
He's not wrong, unfortunately.
Take it away, my friend.
Starting off with the 5090 and the 50 series in general. I'm just going to go ahead and just name off all the specs, get it out of the way, and then we'll talk about some opinions on the matter. We've got the 5090, which has the max power draw of 575 watts, which is absolutely insane.
That's like the entire TDP of the Ghost Rider.
That is a lot more than that.
Is it really?
That is a lot more.
350?
I think it's about 350 watts for the whole system.
So almost two of them.
Yeah. Yep.
What's egregious? You need a power supply for your power supply.
Exactly. This was the running joke back in the day, was the graphics cards are going to get so big that your computer is going to go inside your graphics card. That's pretty much what's happening now. We're going to need a power supply for the GPU and then a power supply for the rest of the computer.
I think someone already did that, though. I think I've seen people have a separate...
Yeah, you definitely do. You just have to short the motherboard power just so that it thinks that it's plugged in.
There was an Instagram clip of someone at CES and they had the 5090 like AIB card and they had a mini ITX board and it looked like a toy. Like the graphics card was attached to it. It was just a little tiny, it looked like a daughter board on there.
It's crazy. So other specs, we've got 32 gigabytes of GDDR7. That is also insane. And we've got 21,760 CUDA cores. Some equivalents of that are other specs. The 5080 has 16 gigabytes of GDDR7, the same as the 5070 Ti. And then the least of the cards is the 5070 at 12 gigabytes. All GDDR7, thankfully.
And so I presume they're going to release the 60 way later into like Q2 or something.
Probably. At least Q2. And then for the max boost, for the 5090, it's 2.41 gigahertz, that is. So 2.41, that's not bad. It really isn't, but just wait till you hear the others. Not surprisingly, the 5080 is 2.62 gigahertz for the max boost. That's really good. But the 5070 Ti is 2.45. Now the strangest of all of them, the 5070, just the regular one, is 2.54. That's 6.06 more than the 5070 Ti. What do you think about that?
Flabbergasted. When you told me that information before we started recording, I was completely confused because I've never seen that before. Because that was the whole point of the Ti, was to be that small step up in performance, either core or memory clock.
I don't know what the point is. There's got to be a reason behind it, but...
Well, it is 4 more gigs of VRAM. There is that.
Yeah.
Which in today's... the landscape of AAA gaming in 2025 now, 12 gigs is like... It's like what 8 gigs used to be is now where 12 gigs sits. It's not quite feasible for the future.
Well...
Not because games should be using that much VRAM, it's because they are. Not because they should be,
it's
because they just so happen to be.
It's just... I don't know if it's quite equivalent to where 8 used to be. I think it's still a little leg up. It's not like bottom tier, but it's definitely lower middle tier.
Well, that's kind of where 8 gigs, at least that's how I perceived it, because in 2020 when you got the 3070, everyone wanted it to be 16 gigs. And people, the leakers at the time wanted it to be 16 gigs because that's what Radeon was doing. They would release a card that was, let's say 2 cards from the top tier, and you'd get 12 or 16 gigs. That was just their like standard. So when they released the 3070 after all this hype, and they're hyping it up with DLSS and all these features and all these encoders and Pro Tools, and then it drops with 8 gigs, it's just a letdown. Not to mention it was scalped to 200% what it was worth, but that isn't
at least 200%.
That's not the point, because that was unavoidable for every card at the time. But my point being is that 8 gigs for a card that expensive, $500, is still like not great for the future.
Yeah. What was the 5070 price at again?
I think it's $549. $549.
$549. Because I know that the 5090 is 2,000 and the 5080 is 1,000. I just remember that $1,000 gap, which is absolutely insane.
I think the 5090 just isn't a tier of its own when it comes to price gouging, because it's not 200% faster than the 5080.
No.
And
there's a bigger gap between the 5090 and the 5070 than there is between.
Try it again.
It's so mind-boggling. It's so mind-boggling because the 5090 has the lowest boost clock out of the whole lineup.
What I was saying is I blame that massive memory pool.
It's got to be just because it has 32 gigabytes of...
Because that was what was happening, because when you and I had a similar system with the Threadripper, even by getting my Threadripper overclocked to match or beat...
It still had a lower...
Match or beat your, at the time, 1700X, if I remember correctly.
2700X.
2700X.
Yeah.
So I had a 1900X Threadripper, and you had a 2700X Ryzen. And the only way for my card to even come close to performing as close to, like, to match, like, parity in terms of, like, core to core, the only way I would ever get close is if I overclocked my RAM. That memory was incredibly important. The difference was that your system could go up to like 128 and mine could go to like 256. So like different tasks would benefit greatly from that bigger pool.
It has to do something with that. Maybe it's because it has, 10,000 more CUDA cores? I thought I wrote down.
But NVIDIA's already proven that Blackwell can basically just Lego stack infinitely. So I find that interesting.
Yeah, I'm really...
It would be nice if they just gave us information about why
things are. That's what I'm saying. I've never seen a release that's given this little information about what the card actually is. Pretty much all that was said is this is better, which gives us nothing. Yeah, we've got performance based on just the GDDR, the VRAM itself, even CUDA cores. You can't
you can't quantifiably
you can't, especially between generations. It's only just a little bit of like guidance as of how much better it is than the other one in that generation. That's all it is.
It's very hard to concretely measure them against each other.
Yeah, until we have like benchmarks, like intricate benchmarks for all of them, there's no information on these cards.
You had complaints about the presentation itself.
I can't even begin to explain how disappointed I am in that.
Well,
especially
give the audience a small picture of what you're thinking.
Basically, all of the information that was given with the presentation is AI this and AI that, and the AI upscaling, the AI rendering. It's all just AI. Yeah, so AI is great. I love AI. I use it all the time, and I think that it's getting way better recently. But how are we supposed to get information off of just saying that the AI is better? Like I want concrete information. Give me numbers that I can put next to other numbers that will give me some type of concrete information. It's all about the information. I'm not going to buy something if I don't know what I'm buying. That's basically what it is. They're intending to launch this and just hope that people are going to buy it blindly. No, I'm saying in my own words.
Yeah.
They're just saying everybody that was going to buy this is still going to buy it because we're NVIDIA. And it makes me so incredibly mad that they're just using their reputation to make sales instead of actually giving information to their customers so that they'll have a guided buying experience. It's just, all right, which one of these four would you like to buy? We got a couple of them. Choose wisely. Here's $1,000 between the 5090 and the 5080. I'm not telling you why it's better, but just believe us that it is.
My concern, I could almost hear the face palms in the comments when I saw the screenshot on Twitter of, it was the screenshot that showed the 5070 in the forefront, and it said, same performance as a 4090 for $549. And knowing NVIDIA, the first thing that entered my mind was DLSS on or DLSS off? Are you using AI artificially inserted frames to get that performance?
Yeah, I was so
natively render the same as a 4090.
I was so I was so flabbergasted by the rest of it that didn't even enter my mind to say just now. Like, but that is a great point that I was thinking of originally when I was thinking of this script. That is also like, you can't base what the new cards are against the old cards if you're just going to use the new software too. Like DLSS 4, it's gonna be all upscaling. Sure, if you wanna say that it's way better, all right. DLSS 4 is gonna be better. It's always gonna be better. The next step up is gonna be better.
Now, I gotta mention one thing, by the way, that I know for a fact that people who are in the market of selling these or in the business of selling these don't want people to really scrutinize is how DLSS actually works for the gameplay experience as an end consumer. And there's one major glaring problem. As someone who's dabbled in game development, there's a massive problem with DLSS. The game doesn't magically progress more times in a frame from the AI occurring. So what that means is if you're playing a game at 60 frames per second, that means the game engine is changing, meaning if you're moving, aiming, sliding, jumping, running, that visualization is the game doing something. The game goes through, does a frame-by-frame render pass or layer-by-layer single-frame pass. That output gets sent back to your eyes of the game doing something. Turning that output into 10 of the same output doesn't make it smoother after a certain point. So if you have a game that's running at 30 FPS, 30 times per second, but then you just take a ton of AI to make a bunch of frames to fill it to 240 FPS, so that way you can say your card can perform that well. The actual game engine is still running at 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
Your CPU, or whatever it is in your system that's bottlenecking your system, is causing the game to only happen at a rate that you see at 30 times per second. So no matter how smooth you make it, it'll still almost look like those AI interpolated videos on YouTube of like anime fights where they drag out the frame rates, where it's like a 24.
So it kind of, it's supposed to look smooth, but you can tell that it's actually still happening at the same pace.
The original motion isn't actually there. It just kind of adds in blur as it goes. That's the biggest flaw with it. And for me, I see that as DLSS is being used outside of scope, because in my personal opinion, where DLSS should have been used is in situations where you're in a competitive shooter. Let's take, for example, a hypothetical Titanfall 3, if that ever happens. I don't know if you've ever played Titanfall, but fast-paced game. You're sliding, you're wall running, you're grappling, you're doing all this crazy movement, and it feels really, really nice when it's the same frame rate the whole time, and it's buttery smooth. DLSS should be able to make that happen. That's where I feel like if your computer's doing like 130, between 130, 120, but you just don't want to see the jumps, you don't want to feel it ever, DLSS just smooths over it like butter. Because the games are actually properly optimized in the beginning.
So that's where that would be really nice to have that smooth, not really blurry.
No.
What do you call it? Anti-aliasing?
Yeah, anti-aliasing.
Yeah, anti-aliasing. It's not gonna end up being just like when you whip your screen around, it's gonna be just a blur of everything around you. You're actually gonna see that because the game is still providing you with those frames.
Your computer's
but
still
it's
rendering
piecing them together in a way
Yeah.
where you can see it smoother.
Kind of like what YouTube does if you try to upload a video that's like 90 FPS. The bitrate algorithm on YouTube does 60 or whatever they use. I forget what it's called, the codec. So if you have something that's over, it'll just cap it at 60, but it looks better. Same exact thing happens if you have quality that's better. If you upload to YouTube in 4K and your viewer is watching it in 1080p, it looks better in that 1080p than if it was uploaded like that. So that same process, I think, should be the approach that games are taking, simply because when it really comes down to it.
But you're just talking strictly by the game creator point of view, not the graphics point.
Well, this is the thing. They're one and the same in a lot of ways, because what's happening with DLSS is that the market for these cards is being artificially driven up because games can't run on current gen hardware anyway. They're not optimized well enough to even work on computers that are being released in stores, at your local Best Buy, at your local whatever, Micro Center, or whatever you have in whatever country you're watching from. You go to your store and buy a computer, and there's a chance you try to run Indiana Jones in 4K, even if the rig can play it in 4K, and it just won't. Or it will, and you have to have DLSS, FSR, something to make it playable, because the optimization just isn't there. So I've been watching some videos on it recently on like people doing deep dives into like we're currently console Gen 9 in. That's technically where we are, Generation 9. And they're showing these captured frames of like exactly how they composite every single frame and how they optimize it for Generation 8 games. So things like I'm trying to remember which game it was. It's a game I've never played, so I don't remember the name of it. But think 2017, 2018.
Okay.
That time frame. And a lot of those games, it was by Sony, mind you. And what they did is they took Unreal Engine 4.
Is it one of the Red Dead games?
Red Dead uses a different engine. Yeah. This game was using Unreal 4. And what they did is Sony went under the hood of Unreal Engine 4 and manually optimized it and then disabled the built-in engine features of Unreal Engine 4 that were supposed to fix your optimization problems. Okay. So by actually going in and tuning it yourself, that actually, by properly optimizing it the textbook way, gives you better details, better clarity, better frames, most importantly for most of us, instead of just using it, turning on the switches.
Yeah, that just goes to show you the budget is really what can make the game have that capability. Maybe. Because you can have those extra people that will go in and tune those.
Sort of. I think one of the other problems is that it's not like a lack of money, it's a lack of knowledge. Yeah. A lot of these people don't even know fundamentally what's going on.
That's true.
Like they know how to do Unreal.
But there are people that have their own skill set, and that's what I'm assuming they hired people to go in and do. People that knew that software. Probably people from Unreal.
So the dude who did the optimization for this specific game that I just looked at today, I can actually get the video up so I can get the name. But the person who did the optimization was an ex-NVIDIA employee who wrote some of the code that allegedly, is what's being used in DLAA, which is like their DLSS upscaled like edge sharpening algorithm. Okay. He's the dude who made some of the earlier or at least contributed to some of the earlier like precursors to that piece of software. Okay. So it's interesting because I see it and I'm like, I've had this same mentality for a long time. Like if I have a 3070, 32 gigs of RAM and a Ryzen 9, why am I getting 40 FPS in this game? Now, obviously a 3070 isn't a great pairing with a Ryzen 9, but at the same time, this is a very capable graphics card. And I feel as if when I'm looking at the charts, certain things just are not adding up. The utilization isn't there, the VRAM usage isn't there, the performance just isn't there. It's just not utilizing the hardware properly.
So again, I'll bring back up, isn't that on the game performance, not the graphics card?
It's on the game.
Or is it because the graphics card is using something it shouldn't be to try and upscale something that shouldn't be upscaled?
Every game's a little different. I think the problem with it is that, like I said, I think these tools that NVIDIA is so heavily invested in should be used to fill in the gaps in certain things that you just have to compromise on. Okay. Like in situations in old games where you have to turn the render distance all the way down in order to get that performance out. Being able to eliminate that as a restriction is what I wanted to see. Not make every single thing ray traced, because you don't need to have everything be ray traced in order for it to look beautiful.
Well, I think that's really that really should be. I don't mean to get into this type of talk, but that really should be on the users. Like they should be the ones that can choose that stuff.
As in, if they want path tracing,
if they want ray tracing, if they want DLSS, if they want upscaling of any type.
And that's another reason why I think like what you're like alluding to is that it's artificially inflated, because they make it so it's something that needs to be on in order for the game to even work, as opposed to me going, oh, my game runs fine, but damn, it could use some.
That's why I also want tests from these cards. I want tests that aren't upscaled, like what we were saying before. What like the 5070 is the same performance as a 4090, but at $549 or whatever the price was.
Just make sure this is muted so I can check this. I just found the game.
So I think that if we're going to actually get those tests and see, is it artificial that this performance increase, is it artificial through DLSS, or is it just raw performance that's making this card better than the 4090?
What most of the time when they do a GPU release, people want to see around 15 to 17%. 15 is like decent generation over generation performance, 17 is pretty good. So if I had to like toss a coin and, I don't know, if my life was on the line and I had to make an estimation, I would say probably 15%, 16%.
Yeah.
That's just where I sit. I know the 5090 probably will have a completely different set of tests for it, specifically
because
it's
going to be completely different. It's going to be on
32. It has 12 more gigs of VRAM.
Yeah.
Like, that's unfathomable. Just here, have a 4090 and have 12 gigs of VRAM. Have a whole nother graphics card on it and a bunch
That's like upgrading from 32 to 64 gigabytes of RAM.
That's what I'm saying. So for me to look at the 5090, I feel like no matter what circumstances, it's being sold under $2,000, $1,000, slow clock speeds, high clock speeds. No matter what, it's gonna fit a niche and it's gonna do a really good job of it simply because it has 12 more gigs.
Yeah, and I think they said it was aimed towards creators this time.
That would make more sense as to why the base clock is so low, because that's not important when it comes to games, or when it comes to pro creation. It's negligible. The game is called, let's see, Days Gone. There you go. Days Gone.
I never heard of that.
See, it's not a game that most people have played, but it's a Sony game, and I feel like it might have been an exclusive for PlayStation. And I don't own a PS5, so I don't believe I would have ended up finding it. But the creator who made this, for anyone who would like to look at this deep dive, because the guy did a great job.
Yeah, I don't even think I've ever seen this game, much less heard of it.
It's Threat Interactive on YouTube. So what he does is he kind of outlines the problems with modern game optimization, and then he has a captured frame.
No, it's on PC.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's my opinion on it. I just think that if DLSS was being pushed as you can play the game on an AMD system or on an Intel system, but you can feel like you're on a perfectly buttery smooth experience on NVIDIA every single time, I would have not a single problem with DLSS and why it exists. But if game developers aren't even willing to optimize a game and they just want to add DLSS in as a manual switch, but it's but for any practical purpose, it's a mandatory feature to play the game, I'm not interested.
Well, do you want to switch over to the next topic?
More naming scheme crap? Sure.
Well, the RX 9070. Where'd it go? What happened?
I thought we just fixed this.
Is this the third time they've switched? Like
third time in like 2 gens or something like that.
9070.
No.
That doesn't
I'm
even
sorry.
sound
I'm so
good
sorry.
to say.
1 generation, because they brought back the XTX out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So it hasn't even been a generation, and they've just
switched it again.
So it was like what, the RX?
Well, at least it's RX still. I'll give them that.
Next time it'll be like the RDX.
All right.
Made by Acura.
That sounds exactly.
I don't know.
That sounds exactly like something they do. Just add another letter for no reason.
Well, they do that in on this script.
How about the RXG, just to make sure that you know it's graphics?
So you know it's gaming. I'm crying. So let's talk about the 9070. Basically, with the obscurity of NVIDIA, this is literally more of the same. So the only things that we really know about this card are the alleged specs. So whereas NVIDIA has their CUDA cores, AMD has Navi.
Yeah.
They have 4096, Navi 48 cores. That's Navi 48 being the designation of the name of the core type, and 4096 being the quantity, just so we're clear. It has 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, so considerably slower than the GDDR7 you're going to find in any of the 50 series. The memory bus is 256 megabytes, which is pretty decent. It's, for context, that's about double of what we were complaining about on the 4060 back in the
last
day.
Time.
128-bit. So this is a rough 2 times improvement, so that's good. It's everything else is just like, as far as I know, I sure hope so. 4nm process manufactured at TSMC at their fab, like pretty much everything. Base clock of 2210 megahertz and a boost clock of 2700 megahertz. To put that into gigahertz, that's 2.7 or 2.21 and 2.7.
Yep.
So
2.7, which is higher than
the
the 50 series.
higher than the 5090, but with a much smaller memory.
Well, it's higher than the highest boost clock on the 50 lineup.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
So
the highest boost clock is the 5080, and it's at 2.62. So it's almost 10.
Dang. AMD back at it again with ridiculously high core clocks. We're back in the AMD FX days. Remember those?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
8.1 in 2011. So let's talk about a little bit of the obscurity here. So for one, we have no idea. Well, at least I have no idea. You might have more insight than me. I have no idea where this is going to fall. Is there going to be a 9090? Is there going to be a 9080? Like, where are we going with this? Because I'm used to.
Why would I have an idea about that? This is like a random leak.
Pretty much, it's not a leak. This.
Well, yeah, there was actual
AMD, and then the things that we have no idea about are from TechSpot. So.
I thought it was
anyone's best
IGN.
Guess. No, it's TechSpot is where I got mine from at least. But let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen. So the information is going to be confirmed on the 24th of January of this year. That's when it releases. The unveiling showcase of this card was in a rig with an upcoming 9950 X3D running Black Ops 6.
It's supposed to launch Q2, right?
I don't know if that would be Q2. I mean, it's in January. What, January 24th?
Oh,
From
January?
Today, that's what? 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, that's Q1.
Yeah. So let's get back.
I thought I saw that it said it was going to come out Q2. Maybe that was
something.
Maybe that was CPU.
We're talking. I mentioned the 4060 or 5060.
No, I saw it written somewhere. Whatever.
Well, you know what? Good things come early. So. What they showcased was the rig with the 9950 X3D. No mention of what RAM it was running in and what configuration or what speeds. This particular GPU that's upcoming, and here's the kicker: it was running the game at 4K resolution natively and achieving about 100 FPS average.
Wow.
Now this is where it gets a little bit muddy. Black Ops 6 has had a known bug since it came out, where applying new video settings does not actually apply them until you restart the game, but it's not disclosed anywhere that that's what's happening. So that's similar to behavior in like Battlefield, where if you change like DirectX 11 to DirectX 12, it doesn't do anything until you relaunch. So the journalist who ran the game in Extreme and got that result on camera at CES may or may not have actually had the game in Extreme, and there's no real way to know. Some people have disputed it, some people are defending it. Either way, 99 FPS is good. And it's good that they're showing it off using raw performance as opposed to not being clear at all about what it is.
So they ran a benchmark, though.
They ran the in-game benchmark, which is about as accurate as it's going to get for the game.
Yeah. So they ran the in-game benchmark, but does that still have the reset for the graphics change?
I don't know. I'm only aware of a bug that happens when you.
But it's just in the game.
Correct.
Not the benchmark.
I don't know. I don't currently own Black Ops 6, and I also don't benchmark it, and I also don't play 4K, so I really wouldn't know.
Yeah, I was just bringing that up as a potential.
I know that some in-game benchmarks have a menu that you can set the presets before you run it. But in this situation, it was not made clear whether or not that was even present. All I know is that they benchmarked the game playing COD Black Ops 6. It said 100 FPS. And some people who've played the game mentioned that if you don't reset the game, that's what happens. So that's pretty much all we know about that. Moving on from the 9070, God forbid they change the name again. May this be the last time they do this, because now at least it's somewhat similar.
Yeah, but it is kind of a sucky name anyway. 9070?
9th generation 70 class. It's NVIDIA. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, but I don't know. 9090?
It doesn't even make sense. It should be the 9970 because we just had the 79 last time.
Oh, it's so stupid. Why do they do this?
I don't know. AMD
stick with something and keep it. I don't even like the Intel one, and even Intel's is simple.
Yeah, Ultra 285K or whatever. I can somewhat remember that.
Intel was always the worst for the names, by the way. In my opinion,
11900K.
I think it was the worst.
KS.
Yeah.
KMS. Kill my no play. So,
all right.
My fault. Let's get into it. It gets worse. So you're already suffering. Don't.
On the topic of AMD.
It gets worse.
And on the topic of names. Take it away.
I'm gonna have to read the itemized list. I'm gonna cry. Okay.
Go for it, buddy.
So, AMD scheduled to release new mobile SoC, system on a chip SKUs. Creators and professionals are your target audience. I'm going to cry.
You ready?
AI is their new selling point.
Really?
Would you believe? Would you believe it, guys? AI in 2025.
A selling point? No way.
Crazy. So, gone is Ryzen at this point. It's basically just AI Max is how these are probably going to be referred to as, because that's just, no one has time to say 6 words. So, let's begin. We have the AI Max Plus 395.
All right.
It's a Ryzen 9. It's a Ryzen 9 mobile. The next one is a AI Max Plus Pro 395. Now, as I forget if it was Linus.
They added Pro.
Now, here's where it gets funny. What Linus said when I was watching his video on his take on this, he said just by definition, you cannot add plus to maximum. And that's literally, that is as literal as it gets. So I don't know what AMD's doing. But
Max Plus Pro.
Max Plus Pro.
What?
So is it Max and Pro, or is it Max Plus and Pro? There's just so many screw-ups in this naming process that it hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people do that, like on candies, it'll be like this plus this, and it's implied that the plus is not a separate object that you're supposed to care about. It's just a connector. In this situation, it's all 3 plus the designation of 395.
But you can't say plus.
Why? Why are we doing it? Why 395? Who cares? Who cares? Can it be the plus, and the plus plus plus? It's just it's mind-boggling.
AI Max Plus Pro 395.
Yes.
That is the longest naming scheme.
It hurts.
All right, just keep going.
Okay, so let's talk. I'm gonna skip all the rest of them. I'm gonna put the list up on screen for all of you.
Whoa! You can't skip AI Max Pro 390S. What does the S stand for?
I believe that was a mistype, but honestly, I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, really?
I believe it was. It is a mistype. That's on me.
Okay.
So let's just talk a little bit about what's going on.
Moving on. That didn't happen.
Like, literally, let's just try to make sense of this madness, and let's just talk about what's going on with these. So AI means that there's an NPU on this chip that does 50, all of them in this list do 50 tops, which is trillions of operations per second. What operations they're doing, I don't know. I don't know jack about NPUs. I know that they're useful for certain features in professional apps, but I've actually really not, I have not had a computer with an NPU, and I have not ran into a piece of software that actually benefits from an NPU yet. So for me, this is just 50 Lego studs that you pick up in a level. Amazing, like little sound. Boing, ding, 50 pence, I don't know, 50 quid. Amazing. So useful. Otherwise, it's just the same old. So you have 16 core, 32 threads on the top models. So the AI Max Plus Pro 395 and the AI Max Plus 395 have 16 cores.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the AI Max 390.
16 cores is not bad, though.
Not at all. They're basically top-end Ryzen's from 3 generations ago in a laptop, which is solid. Here's where it gets interesting.
16 cores on a laptop is pretty impressive.
Here's where it gets even more interesting. The TDP for some of these top models can get as high as 120 watts, the same as, this is good, because they'll drop as low as 45, but they'll jump to 120 when it's required, and I'd imagine when it's on power.
Still gonna need some really good cooling.
Liquid metal? I don't know what they're gonna do with these.
That depends on the manufacturer that uses them.
We trust in Zephyr, right?
Zephyr?
It's
definitely Zephyr.
The little ones that always seem to do well. I liked those. But yeah, the idea for these is that it ranges from 6 cores on the AI Max Pro 380 up to 16 cores on both of the 395 models. Pick your poison, whatever you need for what your workflow is. They have an AI chip for you. When you walk into the store, I guarantee you as a normal customer, you'll have no idea what you're trying to buy, because we do this for a living and I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I still don't.
I don't know what I'm looking at. This is indecipherable. And it gets worse. There's more. So there's also, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 more AI chips that are like dumbed down versions of the AI Max Plus Pro ones. So 8 core, 16 threads on a Ryzen 7 here, 6 cores, 12 threads on a Ryzen 5 here, and more of the same. 50 tops, much lower TDPs. These are like your mobile traditional chips. They don't have that crazy extra power. They're just normal AI, normal Ryzen chip, a little bit of AI to assist in certain targeted programs. So pretty cool. After these chips, it's just more Ryzens. These ones are like your normal Ryzen 9 270, Ryzen 7 260, Ryzen 7 250, 240, 230. The list will be on the screen. These ones pull much less power, some of them as low as 15 to 30 watts. Some of them don't even have NPUs. The most on this list is 16, so bare minimum to get by is my assumption. Is just the bare minimum to get Copilot to work, and you can slap the label on it, call it a day. Why they're doing this, I think
it is worth talking about quickly. The TDP on these newer ones though, like, is really low.
35 is crazy.
Like for a Ryzen 9 with a TDP of 35 to 54,
it's very low.
That is really low, which means it's going to be way more power efficient, especially for not having to cool it as hard.
My thoughts on it are just, this is the difference between this being a home station laptop like back in the day where you'd plug it into a dock and just put your wires on it, to MacBook user levels of, I just go to a coffee shop, sit down and whip out my Ryzen 9 equipped laptop here and work for 6 hours.
Yeah,
like, that's impressive.
That is impressive. And the other ones are 15 to 30.
Yeah, so having a Ryzen 7 with a 35 watt TDP could potentially even go lower. I find that very impressive. Now, I want to know what you're thinking about these, because here's my thoughts. There's not a lot. I think that AMD is going to try to saturate the market and drown out Intel's foothold with these. Because part of me wonders, because once you get to a certain price point, it's either these cheap little Intel chips from 3 generations ago, 4 generations ago even, or they're something completely different, like the MediaTek processors you get sometimes, or they're like the micro Intel Atoms. So if AMD comes in and goes, hey, we have a Ryzen 3 Pro 210 with 4 cores, 8 threads, and it has a 15 watt TDP.
I think they're trying to do some type of power in numbers here, because there's so many different CPUs. There's like one for every use. The budgeting here is going to be crazy. And obviously it's up to the manufacturers, like the different laptop manufacturers, but there's going to be a different mobile CPU for every different use case.
I think that's a good thing. Honestly.
Yeah, I agree. It's more competition, and then there's more availability to people who need it.
It does also demystify the naming scheme a little bit, because most laptops, people don't care. So I think this could be as much an internal skew as it is a sales.
I guess that's not wrong.
But it's just tough to get excited about something when you can't even pick. Like, if you were to give me this list and without putting the specs there, have me pick out the best one, I would instantly get stuck between the Max Plus 395 and the Max Plus Pro 395. Because even when you give me the entire list, those are the same.
Just to be clear, those are also laptop CPUs, right?
Correct. Both of them are laptop. And if you look at
then how do you know if those are any different than the 92070? Like, which one is better?
I still don't know. I would imagine, I'm going to fall for the marketing here, and I'm going to imagine the one that has the Max, the Plus, and the Pro is probably a smidgen better.
That's so many definers. There's no reason for that.
I don't know. Like, maybe could the number mean, like...
Why can't it just be, like, it could be the AI Max, and then the AI Pro, and then the AI Plus. And then you could try and figure out, like, maybe Plus isn't as good as the Pro, and maybe Pro isn't as good as the Max.
It's like
that is kind of like, that kind of works.
In my original notes, that was the joke that I was kind of like forming in my mind, was like, Ryzen is trying to go for Apple without being Apple. Like, they're trying to go for Apple and have the Max Plus, the Pro, like the M1 Pro and the M1 Max that exist already and have existed for years and have done very well. But they're way too many fish in the barrel type. Like, Apple they know their customers are going to buy the product. So give them 2 options and force them into 2 groups and they'll just be happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, so good. We're like, what, 4 generations into M, and we're chilling.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they don't care. AMD doesn't have that luxury because they have so many different manufacturers making these things. So I feel like they went to go do an Apple, then they went, shoot, we have to make 20 of these.
Yeah, and then they had to like add definers.
And it's like,
all
oh
over
crap!
the place.
Now I gotta like find a way to, and it just fell flat. At least it's not gonna fall flat because I guarantee you these are these are going to be great chips.
Yeah,
it's just that
they will be good chips. I know that.
If someone asks me for support, hey, can you help me pick out a laptop? No, nope, no. Go on TechSpot, put in your.
I already say that.
Figure it out.
That goes to show you something. I already don't. I help people find like budget laptops, but now I'm not gonna help people find laptops.
Like, what's the difference between the Max Plus Pro 395 and
Figure
the
it
Max
out.
Plus 395?
I'll just be like, look it up.
Hey Google, how good is the like? I don't know what's going on.
Oh, you got me.
Dang, yours is more sensitive than mine. That's crazy. But yeah, that's just kind of where AMD is right now. It's a lot of confusion. I already think that it's a bit weird because where AMD has been in the past, it's been one of those situations where they make something that's basically the same as an NVIDIA card and then charge you $50 less. You just had to cope with the naming scheme, at least being consistent, but being a little confusing.
You know, at least I won't be bothered by this.
3070 game.
At least I won't be bothered by having to choose between these to put in a PC. Like that can just you can have your laptop space. I'll be fine with my Lenovo Core i5.
I'll be good with this.
Good with that.
2011 MacBook Pro, so long as it doesn't.
I'm good. If it stays on and it searches the web, I'm good with a laptop with that. I need my desktop computer needs a lot more than that, but just for a laptop, I think that if you need a laptop, get something simple. If you need actual computing power, don't buy a laptop.
I would say buy as you need. That's always been my mentality with these things, because I just need Brave browser to work. I need Discord to work so I can like send screenshots.
I'll buy. I need a laptop for very minimal things. I'm fine buying secondhand. I'm fine buying.
Yeah, but then if I needed to edit and I couldn't be at home, then sure, we'll make something happen. Yeah. But I just never understood the mentality of buying it. I don't know. Laptops are so minimal for me. I think what I was gonna say with like these GPUs in general and just their naming scheme, they basically had it perfect when the 6000 series came out. Because everyone all of a sudden got so hyped into graphics cards, and then magically everyone overnight figured out the naming scheme. They were like, oh yeah, there's a 6900, good. Now there's the 6900 or 6950.
6950. Yep.
Oh, 50, a little bit better.
Yeah.
Why not? Oh, this one's on sale for $10 cheaper than the normal.
It's like not quite the next 100 up. It's just 50.
But that makes
it makes sense in your head.
Your brain just puts it together and goes, oh, but it's like a step with a little half step.
Yeah.
That's sure.
That's exactly how my brain thought of it.
And then they were like,
why can't you just stick with something that kind of mentally works for people who don't even know what they're talking about? Now only people who know what they're talking about are going to know how to choose these.
Dude, I'm confused. I don't even understand this.
Well, yeah, we're going to have to research it, obviously.
But part of me doesn't even want to. Is this even
meaningful? So if they do stick with the 90-70, 90-80, 90-90, it might sound like crap, but I'll be able to figure it out.
Here's what I get afraid. This is where I get afraid, though, because the 7000 series is where they tried to add in SKUs along the way so they didn't have to lose inventory. You had the Golden Rabbit edition. Remember that? The GRE?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And then they had what else was it? They had the XT and the XTX. The XT didn't sell because why? Why would you buy that? If you could just pay $200 more to get the best of everything, which is already a compromise.
It was like the Max, but not the Pro Max.
It was more like you were in the market for a 3090, right? The 4090 hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And NVIDIA goes, hey, we basically have something right here that we're cooking up that'll beat a 3090. And everyone went, oh really? So it's kind of a compromise, but not really, but not quite. And then the 4090 came out and everyone went, oh shoot, it's a 4080 basically. Who in the world is going to spend that much on a GPU and not get the slightly better of already a compromise? What? So then they were like, okay, well, we have to make it a GRE edition to sell for cheaper, so we don't have to throw all these things out. Already flopped. So now what? Next generation, and we're on what? 70, 90? So now what? Is it going to be 90, 70?
Wait, 70, 90?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, yeah, 90, 70.
So
Okay.
now we're a generation D.
Good.
We started over.
I was like, I missed the whole thing.
Start tripping. You go to a 9070. Where's the XT? Is XT getting carried over? Are we getting an XTX? Like, what's happening? Why is the 70 coming out first? We did the 90 first last time. Then you took 9 months to release the 70. Now you're doing the 70 first.
I didn't even think about
Where's the rest of them? Why is there only one being
Watch them do like
what's happening?
90, 70, 90, 60, 90, 50, 90, 40.
90, 30 super. We're cooking. Now we're cooking. But that's what I'm saying.
Bring
like
back the supers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? How am I intended to even recommend this to someone or put this in a build if I don't even know why or when these cards exist and are going to be useful? Like, I don't get it. If we just kept the same naming scheme, even in something as terrible, as egregious as the 11900 KS or whatever, we figured it out. Because they kept it the exact same.
So, if your naming scheme is bad, I get it if you're like running out. You can't really run out. But like if you're running out, I get it. But why change something that your entire customer base already knows?
I'll say Galaxy made a right decision. Galaxy was the one brand where I hated it at first, and now I get it. Because we were on the S10 in 2019? That makes no sense. Obviously, the Note 20 clears, and it went from 10 to 20. That actually clears really well. It's better than the last one, and it's 2020. Like, they saw it, and they had the foresight, and it made sense. And now what? We're on the the S25 comes out in like a month. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's 2025.
Get that.
You have the S25. I want that. I don't have money for that. But seriously, like that's a good naming change.
Yeah.
The only mistake Apple made is they skipped one.
But that's no.
Yeah, go ahead.
That is not a change. They skipped a couple of numbers to make it make sense for people. So now the year is the phone. It's so easy to understand. They didn't just say, all right, I'm going to take the S20 and now we're going to make it like the Pro 30 or something.
Right.
Like,
right.
or the Pro XC 40. Like, it makes no sense.
They do that with their budget phones, but they didn't do it with Galaxy. So you're right. And
their budget phones were the A's.
Well, they have like random numbers. They don't actually like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the A13 is better than like some of the old A60s, which is like.
Well, they did switch from the 60s to the standard numbers to make it easier to understand.
Never was announced.
All right, whatever.
But I get what you're saying. So they kept the core idea of the naming. They kept
the idea of the naming scheme so that people still understood it, but they made it easier to understand so it correlates with something.
I think
with this, there was like, I hope there's a rhyme or reason. I hope we figure out.
I feel like the 9070, they're trying to make it synonymous with just graphics cards using 4-digit,
I think
four digits with two groups of 2 digits. So it's like 90 is the series, 50 is the stacking like hierarchy position of the card. So maybe they're just trying to do that. But once they start adding stuff on to the end of these stupid things like XT, XTX, I'm cooked. I don't know what's going on.
Well, we already know what that means.
Well, I'm saying if they start doing like GRE and XTX and XT, like just keep them as steps. Don't screw with us anymore.
Yeah.
Because the average person doesn't even, like, I've talked to so many people about these, and people...
Because the XT and the XTX were already the steps. It was just a number.
Yeah.
And then there was the steps. And then there was, like, the 7950.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like
keep in mind, this could all be condensed down if it was just the 7955 or something like that, like 7960. Like, you don't have to add a whole nother, like...
Yeah, you don't have to...
Group of things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You would with this one because you have to do the different places. But
I don't mind any of that. It's just when it comes down to people doing this stuff all the time, forget that there are people who have never even seen a graphics card. And they go online and they go, what graphics card would I want for my son who plays Fortnite at 4K? If they even get that much information. And they're going to get a massive Google AI search.
They wouldn't get at 4K.
Spit out. No.
Unless their kid was like, I want to play at 4K or something.
Maybe. but then they're going to get some Google AI garbage spit out search result that puts 23 million GPUs on here, of which they're going to just be numbers that make no sense, that don't correlate. And I'm thinking of this through the lens of like someone who's like 60 years old. You're not going to know what any of that means. So at least when you get the line set up, at least make the numbers make sense. At least make the numbers stay the same, even if they don't make sense. Just keep them the same. I don't know.
Because they've changed so much over the years anyway. I just wish that they would stick with something. Because it didn't make sense until it did, and now it doesn't make sense again.
Right. Like, we just got comfortable with
Make it make sense and keep it that way.
Like, that was the thing that I always said with Ryzen was when Ryzen came out. Remember, we had to talk about this. We were like, yo, why is it that Intel goes, oh, you want the i5 11 460K? Why do I want this? And we had to like Google it and look up all the numbers and why K matters. And if you don't have it, do I even have an iGPU?
What's the KS?
Yeah, but it was just assumed if you buy a Ryzen, no graphics card inside. It just didn't happen unless you got the one that had
with G, literally
G graphics. So freaking obvious.
It made so much sense.
It's like, oh, Ryzen 19 or 17. Oh, generation 1 SKU number, and if there was happened to be a G, graphics. Oh,
all right, we're going off about names too much.
You're right, but at this point though, like this would be uncalled for if it was one graphics card or one product. This is an entire company and their competition screwing us right now.
Yeah,
it's all on Intel. It really is all on Intel. They've just changed over to the Ultras and they have Arc. So as long as those two things stay exactly the same and never change, we're good.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out. If AMD keeps doing what they're doing with these graphics cards, I'm just gonna buy AMD Ryzen chips, desktop chips, mind you, and Intel graphics cards to recommend to people because it's easy enough. I'm just tired of this. If you're gonna sell something, you've got to the customer has to at least know what they're buying. They have to at least know if it performs even close to what they're saying. And why did AMD only release one card? That's my real question. Like, why is there just one when AMD or NVIDIA did?
They have to have some type of method behind this. There's something that they're hiding.
There's got to be something. But hey, when that something comes up, you'll hear about it from us. So
yep, you'll hear about it here.
I will close us out. So thank you so much for watching. Join our Discord. The link will be in the video description if you'd like to discuss this further. And please check out our website at GameReadyTech.com. And we'll see you in the next one.